Welcome to the First Responders Wealth Network. Our mission is to help all first responders change their mindset towards money and educate how to build long-term wealth through real estate investing. Are you ready?
All right, guys, welcome back to another podcast. I got my man Charles here, and he is absolutely crushing it. And I can't wait to dive in and talk about it, mainly focusing on arbitrage, which I'll let you describe what that is. But basically, it's focusing on short-term rentals. And just, again, I really want to introduce you to Charles, kind of what he's about, his team, how fast he's grown, and just kind of explain what he's up to. I think it's really, really cool. And I admire the pace that you have been able to succeed so quickly. So why don't you introduce yourself, man, and let's get going.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Dave. We're gonna have some fun today, I think. All right. So real quick background. So I worked 12 years at an investment firm. So financial background, CFP, chartered investment manager, that kind of stuff. Climbing the corporate ladder there. And last year, my wife and I just decided we needed a change. We kind of lost that energy, that purpose with climbing the corporate ladder. We had achieved a lot of our goals and moving up that ladder. We've created some wealth for ourselves, but we've always been focused on having that clear purpose and waking up with energy. And we just kind of started to lose that a bit. So I just kind of went looking for the next step and what that was going to be. And I thought it was going to be quitting a corporate world. I just wasn't sure what I was going to do. And someone pointed me to this Airbnb arbitrage business model or concept. And I listened to a podcast. This was October of last year. I listened to this podcast. At the end of it, I knew I was quitting and that this is what I was going to do. And sure enough, I quit about 8 weeks later. So did my wife. We both quit our corporate job together at the same time. Wow. To build this business.
That's crazy. So what was your wife doing? Was she in the same field as you, or?
Yes, we were both worked at the same investment firm at Edward Jones. Mine was more the investment side. Tiffany was on the marketing side of the investment firm.
Got it. So you just heard about it on a podcast and then just kind of dove in on yourself and did some more investigating. Like, did you get officially coached by anyone or like a program or like just YouTube University the hell out of it or what?
Good question. That was a conscious question that we considered and we chose not to. I spent 8 weeks doing my own kind of personal due diligence, if you will, just trying to understand this arbitrage business model and really just did my own research on whether I thought it was going to work or not. I had some, background expertise with this, right? I mean, with the financial background of kind of assessing an opportunity for a company. And so I just kind of did my own due diligence and thought I wanted to do this my own way. I didn't want to be anchored to someone else's thoughts, but I liked the idea. So I did the research. And after about 8 weeks of waking up at 4 a.m. before work every day, I felt confident that we had the business model, we had a value proposition that people would appreciate, and that we were ready to build this company. And so we quit.
Well, I admire your dedication and determination, and how quickly you acted and scaled. But let's go from ground zero, because I forgot we haven't even described or explained what arbitrage is, and some people may not even understand what that is.
No, it's relatively new. Sure. So essentially, at its simplest form, you are leasing residential properties from real estate investors. You become their tenant. And with that vacant property, you are investing in the staging of the property, furniture, decor, consumables, et cetera. And then you're running it as a short-term rental, of course, with the investors and the homeowners' permission.
Okay, perfect. So basically, yeah, you're finding people who are wanting to rent to you versus, obviously you're experienced investor and landlord, so you can provide better quality maybe in there. It's keeping it clean. So why don't you touch on that point? Some of these questions I already know the answer to, but I think it's really important for people to hear, because when I originally heard that, it's like, who would rent to an Airbnb? And you have a lot of these negative ideas or thoughts regarding what that might be. So explain your pitch and why it might be a good idea for some landlords.
Sure. Yeah, we should definitely dig into this, because you're right. It's the common question. And so it's actually the reason why this business model resonated with me so much is because I've been a real estate investor since I was a kid. I bought my first rental property at 22. I've dealt with long-term tenants, and I, like everyone else, every other investor understands that we're all investing to create wealth, and dealing with tenant and property management is just something you have to do if you're owning property. Whereas with this business model, what we're providing to real estate investors is that they become our client. And so you're not just putting in a tenant and hoping that they can pay your bills. What I'm saying to our real estate investor is that you become our client, and my objective is to deliver peace of mind with your real estate investing. That once you lease a property to us, you can have that confidence that, of course, you're going to get your rent paid every month, but more than that, your property is going to be kept in pristine condition at all times, because my business and reputation depends on it. That means after every single guest, we're going in there not only to deep clean your place, but we're inspecting. So anything that's going wrong, any new mark on the wall, anything is being addressed, because we need the place in tip-top shape. So all of a sudden, instead of having a tenant where you're hoping they don't lose their job, you have someone who's making money on the property. So they're going to be able to pay the bills, and they're going to be keeping it in pristine condition and acting as your property manager at no cost.
Yeah, that's actually a big one that we were talking off air. And I said, we just got through our first month of having ours, or two of ours. And, it's kind of slower because we're just getting it going and getting, you got to get your reviews and Superhost and all that stuff. But we ended up cleaning a couple times in that month. And of course, Aaron stuck me to the bathroom where I had to do the shower, and there's a few people in there. And it's so true. Like, normally how often would a family of three, 3-bedroom, let's call it, would go into the shower and literally clean it so it's spotless, after every few days or once a week or whatever the case may be. And we even had that conversation. We're like, man, like, it's so true, where, you kind of hear it, and maybe that's just like a pitch to an investor, but it's so true. Keeping that person's unit clean so often has tons of value to it.
Absolutely. And it's property management concept as well, right? That we become aware of any issues with your home immediately, because we have to. They call the expectation for short-term guests, for the people that are staying at the property. Expectations are crazy high, right? It's more like a hotel. So if any little thing is wrong with the property, we need to have it addressed immediately. And so we are your ideal property managers, because we're in there inspecting the place constantly, and we coordinate all maintenance. Like, we act as the property manager. We have all of our power teams set up. And so it's truly meant to deliver peace of mind in all aspects for the real estate investor.
Cool. So let's, I'm just going to hit a couple points here so we can kind of paint a picture of kind of what it is that you're doing. And then I want to dive into some kind of a little more specific questions I know I even have personally, and I'll kind of extract some info and some questions from, or some answers from you. So
let's do it.
So you started off about a year ago. So let's talk about what your team looks like now in order to get to your 50 some odd units that you currently have.
Yeah, well, I guess that's it. I'm not even sure if we touched on that at the beginning. So after 12 months, it's been almost exactly 12 months. We have 55 Airbnb listings, which is just wild. It was our goal to have 50 in a year. We thought that was a little bit nuts. I like setting ridiculous goals, but that's what happens. Sometimes you set ridiculous goals and you hit them. So anyway, when we started the company, my wife and I went for partners that we'd have in this business. We weren't sure what that was going to look like exactly, but we knew if we wanted to build a company at the pace and scale that we were looking for, we couldn't do it on our own. Our expertise was much more on call it business development, building the actual company and the structure, the vision, the strategy. But we weren't Airbnb experts, and we didn't feel like we could do both. And so we went hunting to hire some Airbnb experts. And long story short, one of the very first people we talked to, just networking through Instagram, her name is Tracy. It's at Airbnb Simplified to anyone listening. The original plan was to have, Tracy help manage our first few properties and just see how it goes. And the reality is we ended up building this company together. So Tracy's background is as a CPA, her partner's background is a CFA. They had some Airbnb experience, and she was planning to quit her job. She's climbed up the corporate ladder as a CPA as well, and was planning to quit. She's just 27. This girl and her partner are unbelievable. I can spend a whole podcast just talking about them. But anyway, they're planning to quit their job to build their own Airbnb business, a management type of business. And so once we realized we were almost two sides of the same coin, my wife and I were coming with some capital, with some different types of experience. They came with the Airbnb, expertise and just that crazy work ethic. So we just decided after a few months or whatever it was, we were going to build this company together. So they were our co-founders, and that was a big reason for us getting to 55 listings so quickly.
Nice. So obviously you guys are all full time now into your business. So with
That's right.
55 units, you're finding, just because I'm kind of curious, for that amount of people, you got 4 people working full time at this. Did you find that there was a certain threshold of number of units or that had to break even in order to pay you to justify leaving your job?
The short answer, no. I think we had a very much longer term plan in place. So our partners, young and smart, were living way beneath their means and were making enough to be able to get by without really taking much of a salary out of the business. And my wife and I, kind of a different position, we've created some wealth for ourselves, so we can also just afford to, use our savings to pay our bills while we reinvest everything in the company. So everything's being reinvested into the company. And that's another reason why we went to 55 properties so quickly. We're not taking a dollar out of it just yet.
I think that's an important factor, because sometimes people hear and see on YouTube and these guys on his social media and they're all like, we got, 150 doors or whatever that is. And, people think they're just rolling in it because they have X amount of gross income. You know what I mean?
Right.
So
Yes. Yeah. We can talk about gross income. Sure. Yeah. We have, I think we have a 7-figure business. Guess what? I'm not getting a dollar at the moment. So
exactly. And a lot of those people have, are reinvesting to get to that scale, unless you're obviously bringing in a lot of capital and joint venture partners and whatnot. But
that's it.
anyway, just a really valuable point that I think people get distracted, or it even distracts me, to be perfectly honest, of seeing like all these doors and all this gross income. But really, when it comes down to it, a lot of them aren't making their primary income off that.
Oh, that's right. Especially with arbitrage, right? I mean, a lot of when people hear about it, it's often real estate investors who hear about this and they think of it as a real estate investment strategy. And it's just not at all. It's an active business, very highly skilled and highly time intensive. And so when you got to just think of it very differently. So it's all about reinvesting into the growth of the business. We even have full-time salaried people. So it's not only the 4 of us. I mean, we have 4 virtual assistants full-time, but we also have a full salaried employee. We're actually, in-house in Canada, he has a full salary to help run our day-to-day. And so it really does take a very big team to run short-term rental properties. This is not like having a portfolio of 55 long-term properties. It's way, way more than that.
Well, I don't want to spend crazy amount of time on your team, but can you just highlight kind of the role of maybe what each one of you do, including your 4 VAs and 1 salary guy?
Sure, I'll be relatively quick with it. So if my job is to grow the business, find the new business, essentially, my wife kind of leads the marketing of it all. Tracy is the overall operations expert. So she's managing all the cleaners, the VAs, and the really building the structure for optimizing an Airbnb, or 55 of them. And her partner supports her in that, because that's a massive job. But he is our CFA. He's our data guy to help us make better decisions about future investments into more properties. Our VAs are handling all guest communications every day. Again, Tracy, they all report to Tracy. She's leading it, but they actually do all the guest communication and all the cleaner communication. We have a VA who does all of our bookkeeping. We have thousands of transactions in a month, thousands and thousands. I would have to figure out the number, but for short-term rental, it's crazy. So a full-time person dedicated to bookkeeping, and then I have a dedicated VA dedicated to all, CRM, intake, all that stuff.
Cool. So we'll dial back to what you do then. As far as like finding new deals and that sort of thing, how are you finding new leads and finding new business?
Yeah, this is a big question. And with a new business, it's evolved so much. So in the beginning, when we didn't have a business, I mean, it was all cold calling and cold messaging, right? We're essentially just looking at locally. In the beginning, I had a property criteria list, and I went to find places that were up for rent. And I'd be cold calling and cold messaging these investors to essentially pitch why they should consider this business model. In the beginning, that's tough because it sounds sketchy and we have no credibility. And so closing ratios were low, as per usual. But after about 3 or 4 months of having a decent portfolio now and things are ramping up, I haven't pitched to someone since March or something like it. Like really? Everyone comes to us. We have leads coming through. We probably have about a property come in about every day. Call it 5 to 7 properties in a week that come through wanting to lease to us. Like they've heard of the model from someone and they've heard of our company. They love it so much that they're reaching out saying, hey, lease my property. And so we don't go finding too much these days. It's just been coming in.
Wow. Good for you guys. I think that's awesome. Cool. Are you doing mostly then Airbnb in short term, or have you kind of tried the midterms at all?
Yeah, I would say we are fully flexible to optimize the total revenue of our portfolio. And so depending on the type of property in the certain location that it's in and the time of year, we would be shifting between focusing on very short-term stays or midterm stays. I would say a general rule of thumb in the off season, which is from roughly October to March, October to April, midterm stays are quite lucrative because they give so much time back to the company. When you have most stays at the property being longer, that time can go into so many other things to help build the foundation, and the revenue is not that much lower than it would be with a short-term rental. But then back in the on season, you want to take advantage of short-term rentals for sure.
Cool. And then, so where do you find your midterm rentals? Where do you kind of market to find those people?
I mean, most of our midterm rental stays are people traveling for work, or they're in between homes. They're visiting families from out of town or out of the country. And so really any suburban neighborhood that has a decent sized population and isn't oversaturated with short-term rental properties, you're going to find the demand for midterm rentals to be there for sure.
So do you just advertise that on your Airbnb then, or do you go to like specific companies or areas or Facebook?
Yeah. Good question. So part of it is certainly the pricing and the promotions through the Airbnb channel, that they will see a great rate for a midterm stay if that's what they're looking for. But then what we've started to do is connect with local companies, and essentially it's harder to do when you only have one property. The companies won't really take the time to listen to you much. But in Kitchener, for instance, we have 24 or 26 listings or something in Kitchener Waterloo area. Wow. And so we can go to some companies and say, hey, rather than have your employees book their random Airbnb and cross their fingers, here's our 26 listings in a nice brochure, easy to use. And that you're working with the same company that's going to deliver the same excellence on every single property. And they like that. So we go to local companies and insurance agents, ones who deal with helping find accommodations for people who are put out of their home because of a fire or sewage backup or renovations, whatever it may be. Those insurance providers are often looking to fill spots. And again, they want to know that the property is going to be a good one. And if they can trust the one company, they like having a contact.
Cool. That's very good info there. All right. So now let's talk about where do you focus? Where are you now? Where are you looking in the future? Let's talk about that.
Yes. Geez. Again, things have changed so much. So in short, we've grown most of our business in Ontario. The bulk of our listings are here. We have another handful out in Moncton, and that area is growing quite a bit. We'll continue to grow out in Moncton. And we have a handful out in Calgary. We expect to grow there as well. But essentially, we are slowing our growth in Canada and especially Ontario. And the main reason for it is just, it's not the best market for arbitrage compared to the US and other spots. It's a good market, especially to start. If you live here, I wouldn't suggest trying to start going into the US. It's a good enough market. This is where you want to start. You want to be local to your business for so many reasons. It's just that the rents are quite high relative to the expected revenue on Airbnb. The natural margins of an arbitrage business in Ontario are only okay, whereas there's some markets out there in the world and in the US, they're just naturally much higher, way lower rents with even higher revenue. And so now that we have become experts, we know how to build teams, we know how to expand, we're ready to jump through the hoops of what it would take to expand outside of Canada. And so long story short, we're going to build a research database, a market research database to identify the best locations to build an arbitrage business. And then we're going to go after it.
Cool. Good for you guys. Do you have any on your radar now that you're looking, or is this something that you're in the process of?
Yeah, in the process of, I could throw out a couple of cities, but frankly, they're just guesses in the US. We're going to build out all the criteria, just almost a brainstorming session of what makes an ideal arbitrage market, and just throw everything on a paper and then put it in a priority order. We're data nerds, right? We're all financial background, CFA, CPA, all this stuff. And so we're going to build this database of what makes an ideal market. And then we're going to go do the market research with the help of our VAs to fill in all these tables and databases. And it should really tell us with a simple click of an algorithm it should tell us, hey, your best cities are this, and then we're gonna go, and we hope to go with a bang, similar to how we did in Canada. We're not going to go slow here. We're going to decide and then commit.
Hey man, the bloodline is all into the numbers and analysis. I mean, that's the name of the game, right? I mean,
Yes, sir.
I think that's awesome. You definitely got a great team for that.
Yes, we do. Again, I don't know how we lucked out in finding Tracy and her partner. We're put up to karma or something, that we did something good in our lives to attract Tracy, because I swear she's we couldn't have found a better partner and co-founder for our business. And I think she was maybe the second person I networked with, like back in early November. This was just a nugget of an idea, and I met her that early, and here we are.
That's awesome. Well, it all works, and there's some synergy there too. So it's obviously it works out great, and I wish you guys all the best. So,
Thank you.
So then moving forward, then you not only do the business, but you also have a few avenues that you offer people as well. I know I'm on your email list. I get it occasionally. Can you maybe talk about that?
Yeah. So really you're talking about, people aspiring or considering getting into the arbitrage space themselves.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So a lot of people reached out to us over the last, almost since the beginning, asking if we offer any, coaching or mentorship. And the answer for so long was no. That we were focused on building our own operations first and becoming masters of those operations. But then the last little while, we started to see an opportunity. And so the biggest one we have right now is unique in the industry. We don't believe anyone else is offering it the same way we are. And it's not just your typical course or coaching program. It's where we are providing them with properties, leads. I think I mentioned to you, we're getting lots of leads come through, and we just cannot take them all on. They're in so many different locations. We don't have that much money to launch this many properties. And so we have great properties coming our way that for one reason or another just doesn't make sense for our business today, but they're still good properties for this business model. And we used to say no to them, say, sorry, we can't take it. What we've done is now we're playing a matchmaker game, essentially. We're going to the investor to say, hey, I'm glad you like this arbitrage model. We can't do it, but would you be okay if I found someone who provided the same service? They give us the thumbs up. And then we put out a newsletter now. That's the one you're talking about. We think we have 500 subscribers today. And these are people who are interested in getting a arbitrage property or two. We put out the newsletter with a list of available properties, including projections and things that how we expect it to perform. And someone can just simply respond to say, hey, I like the sound of that property, and let me grab that. I make the introduction to the landlord, and if they sign a lease, they pay essentially a wholesale fee to us.
Yeah, exactly. I was just about to say, it's exactly, you're essentially doing wholesaling, but you're wholesaling arbitrage opportunities. And I think it's fantastic. I actually don't know anyone either, up here anyway, but I think it's a great model you guys have. I think you're very dialed in. You're very specific in your numbers and your analysis and your process. So I think it's, you guys are doing a good job on that. Do you kind of underwrite the deals and say, this is what this will essentially, or we believe it might bring like a possible pro forma, or is it just, here's a property of an investor or a landlord that wants to lease to you to do Airbnb? Yeah, no, we definitely have minimum criteria of any property that we put out there. So it needs to meet pretty basic performance projections from us. So like any of our properties that come our way, we'll do a deep dive analysis, and we have some pretty robust financial models to run analysis on a property and project what we think it's going to make for the year. And if it meets a minimum criteria, then that's what gets it on a newsletter. And then we, depending on what the aspiring arbitrager is looking for, we also tag on foundational coaching if that's what they're looking for. So if they have Airbnb experience and they don't need the coaching, it's almost a pure wholesale. They see the deal themselves. I introduce them to the landlord. They know how to negotiate and sign their own addendums. They're ready to rock and roll. We just wholesale the thing. If it's a newer person looking to get started in arbitrage and just wants that first property under their belt, but they want some help, then we just tag on a coaching package with the property. So they get a property and they get a bunch of our foundational insights, some proprietary resources of how to stage the place, our addendums to make sure that they're protecting themselves with the landlord and the leases, and a few coaching hours with Tracy and myself, just to make sure they are ready to launch and manage this property and scale their business. I think it's a great business model on your end, and for an investor who wants to, get taught how to structure and create a business right from the first property. So you're eliminating those expensive mistakes. I think that's great.
Yes, that's certainly the case. And so, we're doing more and more of that. And it's just, simple, send us a DM saying if you're interested and we'll make sure you're on our newsletter.
Especially today. I mean, obviously things are changing rapidly, and it's been good for quite some time. So I think it's even more important to, be very conservative and know what you're doing going in, because things can change quickly.
Well said. Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of like analysis and you guys looking at, what do you guys use to analyze? Is it AirDNA, or is there other programs or resources out there that you kind of lean on?
We would touch AirDNA at the very top of our funnel. So yeah, I don't think I can answer your question in almost a full podcast.
'Cause it's probably your partner's department.
It is his role. Yeah, the CFA is really our guy who's figuring out how to assess a property. But generally, it's a funnel system. So at the very top for a location, we're looking at the regulations to make sure that the regulations support our business model and the scaling of a business, an arbitrage business in that location. Downwards from that, it's just the basic margins to be expected. So here we're talking about what's the average rent for a 1, 2, and 3 bedroom versus the expected revenue on a 1, 2, 3 bedroom. That's where we'll touch AirDNA. We'll go in and get a sense. But to be honest, it's not great data. It's an average of so many things, and so many people are just running it as a hobby for part of the year. The numbers aren't accurate at all. So you really do need to do manual research on finding out the revenue that the professionally run properties are pulling in that area. He's doing all this work behind the scenes. So that's that next funnel. If the margins and regulations are strong, we know this is a good area to expand. And then it gets more and more specific into the specific property type that will perform in that location. And it's just a funnel all the way down. So that for any given location, we know if it's even worth going there. And if it is, what exactly are we looking for and why?
Cool. Hey man, I think you've touched on a lot of things. I've been firing at you like rapid fire here, but
I love it.
So you had a goal of 55 on your first year. So what is your goal of year 2?
Yeah, good question. We have a more complex business plan for year 2.
Sounds like it.
We have some, a lot of different things going on. So I think our total operations, we do expect to at least double the number of units, to go from 55 to 110 roughly. Definitely that includes an expansion to the US. It includes some different types of asset classes. So some luxe properties or more experience or getaway type properties into our portfolio. A lot of multiplexes as well. We started doing more of that recently. So we have an 8-plex in Kitchener that we've turned into a boutique hotel. We signed up essentially a master lease. So for you multifamily investors out there, again, this is such a great model that works for both sides. The investor just finished the renos on this 8-plex, got it vacant, which is just phenomenal. Did the renos, and we signed the lease for the whole building. And so we agree on the price that works. That's what we're paying them monthly. They have just one tenant to worry about, and it's not a tenant, it's a partner in the business, more or less. Amazing. We're paying them their rent, and then we get to run 8 units as a boutique hotel and promote it in the area. So more stuff like that. So we want to get more creative with the types of properties we take on, the different locations. So we think 110 is reasonable, knowing we're going to do some different stuff. But we also want to really grow our coaching and mentorship business. So right now it's the wholesale and coaching, but we are starting to build a more formally structured mentorship program. So if someone is really serious, they wouldn't just get a property in a basic package. We would spend time with them every week on a structured program to learn what we do, how we did it, and really help them to build their vision of their arbitrage business. So that's coming in the coming months, I would say.
Love it. Well, you got a lot of stuff that you're working on and growth, and I can tell you guys will be just fine doing what you're doing, and lots of big goals and aspirations. I love it. So cool. Yeah. Well, where can people get in touch with you? I know we'll leave some stuff in the show notes, but just people who are listening, where can they reach out to you?
Yeah, Instagram is your best bet, and so that's our what's the handle? It's called, I guess, at Crompton_elite_REI. That's my page along with my wife, Tiffany, and then our partner at Airbnb Simplified, that's Tracy. And so those are our 2 pages right now. And that's the best place to just send us a DM, let us know what you're looking for, and we'll be in touch for sure.
Love it, man. I hope we can now do a podcast this time next year and I can hear all the growth and what the next steps are from there. So
yeah,
really,
let's do it.
Really looking forward to seeing you guys grow through IG in the Instagram world. So, or
yes,
whatever
let's do it.
Platform it might
Appreciate
be.
it.
All right, dude.
Thank you.
Take care. Thank you very much for coming on.
Bye for now.
Thanks for listening. Don't forget to rate and review on iTunes. Also, check out our website at 911wealthnetwork.com or contact Dave directly at 911wealthnetwork.com. Stay safe out there.